Hi, welcome to Senior Savvy. I'm Jane Wells, your host for today's show. Senior Savvy is brought to you by the Oshkosh Senior Center, where it's our mission to enrich the quality of life for adults ages 50 and older. Well, it's 2016. What resolutions do you have? Hopefully we can talk a little bit more about that later in today's show. But I have a wonderful guest on today, Mr. Frank Facetto. He is the administrator at the Division of Trade and Consumer Protection, and he's going to talk a little bit about how to protect ourselves. Hi, Frank. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Jane. Good morning and Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Same to you. Tell us a little bit about your role and who exactly it is that you work for.
Sure. The Division of Trade and Consumer Protection is one of 7 divisions within the Department of Ag, Trade and Consumer Protection. Mm-hmm. And our job as a division is to enforce the laws through the state of Wisconsin in order to protect consumers from fraud and deceptive business practices, as well as making sure that legitimate businesses can flourish within the state of Wisconsin.
Right. And although, we don't want to make it seem like, everyone's out to get everyone else out there, but there are things that people need to be aware of. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. And then also resources if you feel that you're a victim of something or you're just not sure, something feels off and you want to find out about more information. That's kind of what we're going to share a little bit about today.
Oh, perfect.
Right. All right. So we work with the senior population, those ages 50 and older. So tell me a little bit about what you're seeing, or are there scams that are specifically targeting seniors in terms of a vulnerable population? Or
Well, we use a variety of information and resources in order to track the trends that are happening out there. Oftentimes we will be able to find out what is going on because we're getting a number of complaints from individuals. So while at this point we don't exactly track the elderly population, we use a demographic 18 to 61. So we use 61 as that elderly number.
Sure.
And then anyone who calls in who is beyond that age, we then are able to kind of see what is going on.
Okay.
Now, we also work with the Federal Trade Commission and other agencies that do track this information. And clearly, with the baby boomers who are rapidly retiring, that demographic, that population of individuals continues to rise, and therefore the risks that are associated with this particular group is going to also continue to rise into the foreseeable future.
Right.
So beyond all of that, then we try to look at what kind of scams are taking place out there, and to the extent we can, we like to make sure that the first line of defense is information and education.
Right.
What do you need to see, what do you need to know in order to not become a victim of fraud and deception?
Right, because many times people are just basically trusting. And so if somebody is contacting you and asking for information, you tend to believe that they are who they say they are.
Exactly.
But that's not always the safest thing to do. So let's talk a little bit about that. You had shared about an IRS scam.
Yes.
Because, I think we all kind of go, what? IRS? Panic?
That's exactly the response you get. When you get a call from somebody and they're falsely claiming to be from the IRS and telling you that you owe back taxes and demanding immediate payment, or if you don't, you could face jail time or you could lose your driver's license. And using those kind of tactics, your first response is going to be one of panic, as you just said.
Right.
And if you don't know that the IRS never calls people, they send a letter, a nice letter, which if you get that in the mail, you probably panic too. But at least you know it's legitimate.
Right. So the IRS is never going to call me up and say, hey, you owe back taxes, we're going to put you in jail, give me your social security number and all your ID information. They're never going to do that.
They won't be doing that, but the key there is if you already have something that you're working with the IRS, there will be phone conversations, but they won't be demanding payment over the phone. That's not how it works. So if you find yourself in that situation, the number one thing to do is to hang up the phone. Now, if you're unsure of what this is all about, then find the local IRS telephone number and give them a call, because you're the one initiating that. But clearly don't make the mistake of wiring any money or
Okay.
sending any money to an individual, because once you do that, it's gone.
It's not traceable. It's just
It's very, very difficult
Right.
whenever these wire transfers to occur, because oftentimes they're not domestic transfers,
Right.
they're international, and
Right.
tracking that down is very challenging.
So do you find that that caller would tend to repeat calling to that same place if they sensed the person was hesitant, or I mean, do they call back even? Okay, so say the first time you kind of go, oh, this doesn't feel right, and you hang up. But they can tell that maybe there's, do they tend to call back and follow up?
Yeah, you raise an interesting point, Jane. There was, the Jamaican scam. I'll bring that one up. That happens on a frequent basis, and there was an individual who had fallen victim to that and had wired money because there was going to be some additional money given to them, inheritance of some sort.
Okay, sure.
So, first call, they wired the money. A second call came in, and it was from an official or an attorney from representing the people who had initially called them and said, your money is still frozen here, your inheritance, so to speak.
Okay.
But for a little bit more money, excuse me.
No.
Yes, for a little bit more money, I can free this up for you, but you have to pay the stamp tax and all these other made-up gimmicks.
Sure.
And then when that happened, the third call came, and it was from an official in the government of this particular country.
Right.
And it was saying, well, actually, here's what's going on, and the attorney bilked you, but now for a little bit more money, we'll be able to make it, make you whole. So that happened 3 times. On the 4th call, the person said, no, wait a minute, enough is enough.
Right.
So you need to be very, very careful about those kind of calls that are coming in. And oftentimes, rule of thumb is if someone is going to solicit you for something that you really don't need, or is going to make whatever they're trying to sell sound too good to be true,
Right.
remember your mom's old adage, if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Sure. And like you said, the key is they are contacting you.
Correct.
Whereas, like you said, the IRS is going to send you a letter.
Right.
And then once contact is initiated and you have an ID number or whatever it is that they work with, then there's a likelihood of a phone call or something like that.
Sure.
But just out of the blue, somebody calling you and saying you owe money, fork it over right now, that's not going to happen legitimately.
That is not going to happen legitimately, and that's the number one call that's been coming into our office. Doesn't necessarily mean it moves to a complaint. It's just people calling us and saying, hey, I got a call from the IRS. Is this legit or not?
Okay.
And we're telling them, no, it's not.
Okay, so if I receive one of those phone calls and I do sense that it's not legit and I hang up, should I report that to you, or do you just let it go, or what does one do?
Well, if there is caller ID, for example, which you have to be careful of that too, because those numbers can be spoofed very, very easily. So it looks like a legitimate number coming from a government agency, but in fact it isn't.
Right.
But yes, call a local law enforcement, and also call us over at DATCAP.
Okay, and I think we have a phone number that people can call, and it's the 1-800-422-7128.
Correct, that's right to our hotline.
And then somebody there would assist whomever's on the other end of the phone with whatever issues they might be having, and give them some direction in terms of how to handle it in the future or what to do.
Right.
And if you've already wired payment, it's probably too late to stop that, or?
If you've wired payment and you've been the victim of this deception and this fraud, you can pretty much consider that money gone.
Okay.
It's very, very difficult to get it back.
Right. And do you find that they ask for hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars, or, I mean, how much is the dollar amount that they kind of go for at first?
Well, that amount fluctuates.
Okay.
There's really no rhyme or reason to that.
All right. Just was curious if there
right.
was,
But if someone is trying to get you out of money and you give them money, you can expect another call to try to get some more.
Right. They'll follow up with that.
Right.
All right. So let's talk about some other scams that are kind of going around. My grandchild. I get a phone call about my grandchild. Pull at my heartstrings, please.
That's that emotional appeal,
Right.
that you get a call from somebody and they have just enough information to make it sound legitimate by calling you maybe a pet name, or somehow trying to pull information from you. And the new twist to this is that they're in trouble, and they are maybe have run afoul of the law, and they need to get sprung out of jail. So if you can please wire some money over here. Oh, and don't tell anybody in the family because,
Right, I'll get in trouble.
I will get in trouble. Yes, exactly.
So the person calling pretends they are the grandchild or
Yes.
a representative of the grandchild? Okay.
No,
It's little Timmy and
Yeah.
Grandma, I'm in trouble.
And you wonder, where do they get this kind of information? And there's a number of different ways that can happen, but
Sure.
social media is, it's huge
Right,
out there.
right.
And so these scammers they're the con artists, and they're out there trying to find information and then put it together so that they can carry out a con against somebody.
Right. So if your grandchild has, the family relationships and he's got those people labeled, and then, somebody clicks on, Grandma's site and somehow your phone number becomes available, if you don't have all of that stuff hidden or protected, I can see how very easily it can be traced that thing.
And be careful of posting your vacation days or when you're on vacation to some other place, because as you're pulling all of this information together, that's a really good example of, hey, by the way, I'm down here in pick a country, and I need to get out of jail, and only you can help me.
Right. Or by the way, I'm down here in this country, which means there's nobody at my home. So feel free to,
Absolutely.
you're right. You do have to be careful with that kind of stuff. So the IRS calling you, bogus, grandchild calling you. I think there's ways to check out if that's legitimate or not. You know what? I know you don't want me to tell anyone, but I'm just going to call your mom and dad and let them know what's going on or something like that. And that again is please send money, right?
Yep.
That's the ultimate goal in all of this. Is
ultimately, people want your money or they want your identity in order to get your money. So you're looking at scams that are they're wrapped a different way, but they all have at their core the very same type of things. And people need to understand when, number one, someone solicits you, aggressive tactics, threatening.
Kind of just won't take no for an answer.
Won't take no for an answer.
Coming at you.
Exactly. So a legitimate business that is out there that wants to get a hold of you because they would like to make you their customer, whether it's through the mail or whether it's a telephone call or some type of telemarketing, which is legitimate in the state of Wisconsin, so long as you're not on the do not call list. If you get a call like that, charities, for example, this is the time of year before, during the holidays, charities will call and will use, they'll use names that sound like legitimate charities that have been around for a long time, or they may be reluctant to give you information on the mission of this particular charity. You need to step back, ask questions, keep your wits about you.
Sure.
You always have the option of hanging up the phone.
Right.
But ask questions, get an address, get a telephone number, get a name of that individual, and then do your own research.
Right. Or say, does it work to say, send me something in the mail, and then I'd be happy to send my check.
Absolutely.
But you're right, there are people out there who are posing to be something that they're really not. A couple other things I do want to talk about that you brought up. The identity theft. So what exactly is that? How can it hurt me as a person? What ways can I be protecting myself from having that happen?
Yeah, identity theft, that is rising throughout the country. It's not just in the state of Wisconsin. 2 years ago, that was number 4 on our list with somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 complaints. That jumped by about 47% last year, and it continues to rise. Obviously, if you have your identity stolen, you run the risk of losing your savings, of having credit taken out in your name.
Because they can go and spend.
So it isn't what you've already saved, it's also the future amount of money that's going to be tied to you. So you want to be very, very careful. And there are a number of things you can do. First of all, When you're carrying information with you, your driver's license, your Social Security card, your Medicaid and Medicare cards.
Right.
If you have this information together, that's a treasure trove to somebody who is looking to steal it.
Right.
So you want to keep those documents separate as best you can.
Right. I've heard actually about the Social Security card, of course, and never carry that in your wallet. I guess I didn't realize until recently that the Medicaid and Medicare cards pose a problem. So, while it's inconvenient to not have them in your wallet, because if you're going to the doctor, it's just nice to have them there.
Right.
People do need to realize the risk that is involved in carrying that.
Correct. You might also, when you get bills in the mail, it'd be nice to have a shredder handy. Because when you're done, put the documents in a shredder. It's going to take forever to try to put those back together.
Right. So not just ripping it up, but actually run it through a shredder.
Yeah, shredders are a very good investment.
Okay, and they're relatively inexpensive for some of the lower end ones, but just as a safeguard to not have your information, your account numbers.
Correct.
Going out there in the mail.
And even if you're getting, oftentimes we will get these in the mail. A credit card company is sending you something saying you have been pre-approved.
Right.
And it's got information pertinent to you.
Right.
You might want to shred that as well.
Okay.
Because anybody can go in, dumpster digging.
Yep, I'm John Smith today. Why not?
Exactly.
Right? Fill it all out.
Exactly, because all you have to do is call it and then start spending money. You might also want to check your bank statements and your credit card statements when they come back in the mail. You'll be able to identify whether there are any unauthorized purchases.
Sure.
And of course, you're protected from somebody charging fraudulent charges on your card because you have the opportunity to get that money back.
Right.
So that's a really good idea. If you use a debit card, you may want to keep a limit of how much money you have on that card or a prepaid debit card. That'll limit any losses in case anyone does end up stealing that from you.
Sure. So what are the ways, so my Social Security card is secure, my Medicare cards are all secure, Medicaid cards are all secure. Are there other ways which people could attempt to steal my identity?
Oh, yeah, they're all, you have a mobile device, you have a phone, you have email. There are ample opportunities for people to try and get to you by lowering your defenses through any of these other means. It might be as simple as a phishing email that is sent out to you, and recently anyway, since we came out of the holidays, a lot of people were buying online.
Sure.
And so you had the potential for the shipping scam label, which is, again, a lot of emails going out and telling people, there's a problem with your delivery, so please click here, and it takes you to a page that looks legitimate, but may not be. And so unless you've been saving your confirmation orders and you have them nice and neatly organized, then you can look at it and say, okay, wait. I either have this or I have another email that says this is when it was mailed, and this is when you can expect it. You could potentially be the victim of fraud. And by clicking on that link, what that will enable the con artist to do is to basically get access to some of your personal information, or they may end up putting in some form of malware on your computer, which again is going right back to your personal information and then ultimately stealing your money.
Right, and I shared with you, I had an incident with that recently where on my MacBook that it came up that they detected a virus on it, and I needed to call this number, and it looked close enough to an Apple site, but I kind of went, I've never had that before. So I called Apple, and of course they said, don't call them, don't click on anything. But every time I would try to open up my browser, that's what would pop up, and it was really kind of frustrating, and I couldn't get rid of it without the help of some technical advice from Apple. So just interesting how persistent it is, and even, I'm somewhat computer savvy, but I still, I did a double take at it just to make sure that it wasn't what it really pretended it to be. So,
And we call that the tech support scam, and we get that on a regular basis. I look at the calls that are coming in on a weekly basis just to see where we're at. And the Microsoft and the Apple tech support, those calls come in on a regular basis.
Right. So call this number.
Right. If you find yourself in a position where your computer is been infected or has been infected, what we'd like to recommend people do is call up their local IT store nearby.
Right.
That we have a bunch of them in town.
Right.
Give them a call.
Yep.
And let them work out the bugs,
right.
so to
Check
speak.
the validity of it.
Right.
Right. Okay. So we talked about the grandparent scam, kind of the IRS scam, a little bit about identity theft. What else should we just cover? We have about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
So,
well, you were talking about the identity theft and how different people can get at your identity. We were the computer is one.
Right.
The mobile devices are another.
Right.
You've got your phone as another.
Right.
We like to try to educate and inform people to remember that passwords are for your protection and they're for your identity only. So make sure that they are as robust as possible, and don't duplicate the passwords on your different apps.
It's so
and
hard
I know
because it's hard to remember all these different passwords.
Go into your pocket,
I know.
pull out your sheet of paper, and look at all the
Yes.
different passwords. Somehow figure out your own system where you
Right.
can keep those passwords secure.
Right.
The email password should be the strongest one, because once somebody gets in there, it's generally easy to navigate around and to find others.
Sure. Sure.
Obviously, your banking passwords, be very, very careful about those,
Sure,
because
yes.
you
Right.
don't want to let those out
You don't
there
want a
in the
big
general
transfer out of the
universe.
account into some other account
Exactly.
you don't know.
Remember when you're using Wi-Fi, whether it's at home, make sure you go into your system and activate the two-factor authentication. So it's not only what you know, it's where you have a lot of different information in there.
Sure.
Two-factor authentication. And if you're out having coffee at a local establishment, remember that that's generally not password protected Wi-Fi. So if you're going to be doing any kind of banking activity, be very, very cautious.
Yep, don't do it on those unprotected Wi-Fis, and those are in the public places generally.
They're in the public domain. Yeah.
Right, where you can just sign on, you just pick up the Wi-Fi without having to put in a password.
Right.
Basically tells you that it's a non-protected
Right.
site, and that's where people can lay in wait for.
And the tables are
others.
pretty close to each other when you're in those areas, so even detecting keystrokes is something that can be done as well. So another thing you might want to do is change your password on a frequent basis.
Sure. I would like to just go back to the do not call registry, because what a pain to have people calling you on constantly. Right. So there is a registry that people can be on.
Correct.
Do you want to explain that just a little bit?
Sure. It used to be the Wisconsin registry. You had to call every 2 years in order to remain on that list. In 2014, we ended up becoming a part of the federal list, which is in perpetuity. So you call once from the device, from the phone that you want to register, and that number will be on the federal list.
Okay. The number to call
number to call is 1-888-382-1222.
Right.
Okay.
And you, like you said, you call from the phone that you want registered as on the do not call registry.
Correct. Now, telemarketers can telemarket in Wisconsin. They have to register. Once they register, they will get the do not call registry, and they have to take all those numbers off the list that they currently have.
Okay.
So if you get a call from somebody, you're probably getting it from somebody who either hasn't registered, and that's something we want to know about.
Sure.
Or secondly, it's a crook, and they don't really care if you're on the do not call registry.
Right.
Or the robocalls.
So let's give out your phone number to contact if I feel uncomfortable about something, or I have a question, or I feel like I've been a victim of a scam, or something doesn't feel right.
Sure.
The number that I call for that.
Give us a call, 1-800-422-7128. Or you can also go on the website at datcp.wi.gov and file a complaint or
Right.
let us know what's going on or check for information.
Right, your website is a great source of information for different alerts that might be up, but also
Right.
just how to protect yourself. A lot of the things that we've talked about
Yep.
are available on your website. So there's contact information if you're having trouble. There's alerts to what might be going on in
Right.
a certain area, or if there's things you're aware of. There's the do not call registry, so really good information on that website.
Yes, and I would encourage anybody to go there and
Yes.
see what they can find out.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Frank, for being on this show. I really appreciate it, just helping to give people some tips about how to not become a victim of scams and fraud and identity theft.
Well, it was a pleasure being here, Jane. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, and for everything you're doing to help protect Wisconsin consumers.
All right, well, thank you, Frank. All right, next, quickly going to speak about things that are upcoming at the Oshkosh Senior Center. And as you may have heard, the Oshkosh Senior Center now is a part of the Silver Sneakers Fitness program for our Fox Fitness Center. So if you are a Silver Sneakers member, you can come in and use the Fox Fitness Center for free. So just come on down to the Senior Center to check that out, or you can always go on www.silversneakers.com to find out if your health plan covers the membership. Thursday, January 14th and the 28th are the Creative Time classes, and these are led by award-winning artist Jeannie Snowhook. The first one on the 14th is going to be the Tree of Life pin, which is a beautiful pin, very neat. And then on the 28th, she will be making the fleece shawl. So the cost for that is $10. That includes all your supplies, and Jeannie walking you through, showing you how to do it. It's really a cool time to just get out, do something different, and have some fun. We are excited to be bringing some new classes for fitness to the center. There is a new Tai Chi class running on Mondays from 2 to 3 p.m. and excuse me, and a Pilates class on Fridays from 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. And Margie Mahoney is the instructor for both of those. So new Tai Chi and Pilates, come on down and check it out. It is getting to be close to tax time, so we will be again having the tax assistance program at the Oshkosh Senior Center, and you do need to make appointments, and those appointments are made through the United Way. The phone number to call is area code 920-651-3060. Again, appointments do need to be made through the United Way for those tax appointments. We do have Rent Smart tenant training workshops coming up in February 3rd and February 5th. If you are by chance going from long-term home ownership into the renting world, this might be something worth checking out. And then lastly, volunteer opportunities, nail care, bingo, lead cooks, front desk, woodshop supervisor. Please give Jody LaPlante a phone call at 232-5306 to find out more about the opportunities available at the Oshkosh Senior Center, because volunteers are our backbone. All right. Lots of exciting things coming up in February. We do have a coffee house music night coming up. There's dementia care coming up in January. So give us a call or check us out online. And thank you for watching Senior Savvy, and we'll see you soon.